All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing us all to take a break. I think we all needed it. I needed to refill my coffee, so very thankful for that. What am I doing here? Okay. Okay, is everybody ready for part two? Did anyone else have questions before we jump into the next half? Okay, I'll take that as a no. And again, if you ever do have a question, just jump off mute and ask away. I don't mind being interrupted because it's probably something that someone else is wondering. So, okay. Um, so next half, we're talking about recruitment and enrollment and then expectations for all parties within the AmeriCorps program. So this table covers the different slots that we have available and then the number of service hours associated with each slot type, the number of weeks that that member is expected to serve, the suggested number of hours per week that they should serve in order to easily meet that service hour requirement in the number of weeks outlined, and then the living allowance and education award. So the living allowance is considered a stipend. It's paid out biweekly. It's not an hourly wage. AmeriCorps doesn't like when we refer to it as that. So it's not directly tied to their timesheet. So say a member serves 20 hours per week one week and 40 hours the next because they had a vacation or something, their living allowance will be the same. What really matters is that the member is serving consistently to meet the needs of the host site and to meet that service hour requirement over the course of that time frame. So there is a little bit of flexibility there, but in general, we want the member to be serving consistently um, and have a regular schedule in order to meet that service hour requirement. Um, they can take a day off here and there. They can take a vacation, but they just need to make sure that they're making up any hours that were missed. The living allowance comes out to, I said it's not an hourly wage, but if you do the math, it's about $13.75 per hour. And then the education award is here. So if you add those two together and divide it by the service hour requirement, it's about an $18 per hour benefit. The education award is not available to the members until they complete their AmeriCorps service. So they have to successfully complete to access that award. If they exit early, um, then they won't be able to access the award unless they're exiting early for a circumstance that is outside of their control, like an injury, for example, or um, a random termination of the grant. But that's not going to happen. But if it's something outside of their control, then they would be able to access the education award, a prorated amount. So when you're sharing the opportunity, you can keep this table handy. If people are asking what the living allowance might be for a certain term, you can have those amounts on hand. The slot types, if you look to the left, you'll see the number of slots for each one. So we are going to enroll these slots until all are full. So if you are wanting, for example, a 3/4 time member, but we enroll all 7 members prior to finding one, then we may have to change it to 2 half-time members, for example. So definitely you're encouraged to be active in the recruitment so that we can fill the slots before someone else does. So finding your member, we post once you apply for the AmeriCorps position or for the AmeriCorps members through the host site application. I'll take that information and post it on our member application. So our member application has a list of all of the different positions that are available. They look through that and there's a section within the application where they have to indicate their preferred host site. So they'll review the positions and say, oh, I'm really excited about that position at LSI, and they can indicate that in the agreement. If they don't indicate a preferred host site, then I'll reach out to the applicant and just let them know what is available in the area, and they can opt to interview at all of these sites in the area if they wish to. So we do ask that the host site circulate the position in the community, but you'll want to provide them the direct application. So you shouldn't have your own separate application for the position. You can just share the link to the Iowa Community Corps member application so they can apply directly. I monitor the application form every day. So as applicants come in, I reach out to them immediately to schedule an initial meeting with me. And then they will turn around if they pass the initial screening and interview with the host site. So that initial screening, we're not going too deeply into the actual specifics of the position. That is really meant to be covered during the interview with the candidate. The initial program screening is really covering the AmeriCorps side of things. So I'm going to explain what is AmeriCorps, what our program is specifically, what it means to commit to an AmeriCorps service, meeting that service hour requirement within that fixed period of time, and how it really is a commitment. So if you sign up, you're in it for the long haul. I'm very transparent about the living allowance that is offered because I don't want that to come as a surprise. It's definitely a modest stipend, and so it has to be something that is feasible for that individual's budget, lifestyle. And I also explain all of the benefits that, it's a commitment, but there are a lot of benefits to your next professional steps if you are wanting to pursue a career at a government agency or in the nonprofit world. There are a lot of great skills that come out of participating in AmeriCorps. I will request their resume and then share that with the host site if they pass that initial screening. So if they're on board with everything, they're ready to commit, the next step will be to interview with the site. Ideally, schedule that interview as soon as you can. It's a tough market out there, and people need instant gratification. So if I send someone your way, please try and reach out to them sooner rather than later. Get something on the schedule for the following week. And in person is definitely best so that the candidate can get a feel for the site, the staff, understand the commute. And there's just, as we all know, it's easier to connect in person and get a feel for that individual if you're doing that in person. You can check the references if you so wish. Definitely discuss the scheduling needs. So I will generally ask the member, if they have other responsibilities like another job or if they're a student. And we talk about doing full-time versus part-time and what's going to make the most sense. But as far as that like day-to-day schedule, what that's going to look like, that's a conversation that you should have with a member because ultimately we want it to meet the needs of your site. So if they are available and they have time in their schedule, but it's only in the evenings and the site's only open during the day, you're really going to want to hash out the details of that and make sure the member has enough time within your working hours to meet their service hour requirement. And then you also want to cover all the requirements that you might have for your site. So if you have specific qualifications or requirements that you expect of that member, you'll want to ask those questions. And you will have the freedom to design your own interview questions, again, because each site is unique. Each site has their own needs. So craft some questions that are going to help you assess if that individual has the skill set that you need to perform well in your AmeriCorps position. Okay, so the recruitment process can take a couple weeks. Sometimes it's super fast. I mean, sometimes we have someone come in, I'll screen them that day or the next day, refer them to the site. They'll do an interview the next day. it's a great fit, boom, we're done and we're moving forward. But generally, it can take a few weeks. Once that candidate has been identified and selected, we need ideally 2 weeks prior to enrollment to get them onboarded. I can swing it in a shorter amount of time depending on what I have going on, but I don't like to. So it's generally a good goal for us to shoot for, having the candidate selected 2 weeks prior to the enrollment date. So upon selection, the member will receive an enrollment form through My AmeriCorps they'll have to complete. They will also sign an offer letter from me that will get their consent to initiate the background check. This is a 3-part background check. It's pretty intense because, again, it's our members serve vulnerable populations. It's a federal grant, so they'll have to get their fingerprints scanned. They get their social security number and citizen status verified in the My AmeriCorps portal. They need to pass a national service criminal history check. So we check them against the National Sex Offender Registry, the state of Iowa resident registry, and the FBI fingerprinting registry. So they have to do all of those things. That involves scheduling an appointment to go get their fingerprint scanned, going to the appointment. It can take some time. So once they clear that, then the member is eligible to begin service. They have to clear their background check at least 1 day prior to starting. So that's why it's so important that we get them through the background check sooner rather than later. And then they'll be enrolled on their start date. They'll have to sign a member service agreement. They'll do an orientation with me, and then they will be turned over to you. We'll talk about the host site orientation that you will provide for the members a little bit later. So next, we're going to talk about expectations. Again, AmeriCorps is structured in a way that everyone has to be an active participant in order for the program to be successful. So on the program side of things, we'll go over what is expected of me, what my responsibilities are, the responsibilities of the member and of the host site. And we all have to have good communication and work together to make this grant successful. So on the program side of things, again, I'm providing all of the administrative lifts so that you guys don't have to worry about it. So we do the background check, process the HR paperwork and payroll. We provide workers' compensation should that ever be needed, so you don't have to worry about that. Manage the member files, provide them with gear, approve them of their term of service and their education award, and process their enrollment and exit. I provide support throughout the member service through service hour monitoring. So we're monitoring those timesheets every 2 weeks to make sure that they're not getting behind and we're keeping people on track. We facilitate trainings, check-ins, site visits. I send out a weekly email that provides any updates that you need to be aware of. So please be sure to read that email each Friday and then facilitate the member meetings as well. I also support the host site with general recruitment, reporting requirements, performance concerns, and disciplinary issues or extended absences, and in general, just meet all of the requirements that come with managing a federal grant. There are a lot with AmeriCorps. So that is my role. There are a few systems that we'll work with throughout the member service. The biggest one is Encore. That's our timekeeping system. So I will send you the login information for Encore so that you can access and approve your members' timesheets. You'll get a link with a username and password, and then you can change your password once you log in so that it's unique to you. The pay periods are bi-weekly, so they start on Friday. So today, well, actually, no, the member enrollment day is next week. So first, the start of the pay period is next Friday, September 12th. And then it ends the following 2 Thursdays after that Friday. So the member needs to submit their timesheet within 2 days of the end of the pay period. So they should ideally submit their timesheet Thursday or Friday, but they have until Saturday to submit it, and then the site supervisor has 2 days to approve. So the Monday after the end of the pay period, all of the timesheets should be approved by site supervisors, because that Monday is when I go in and review all of the timesheets and send out those updates. And the calculator that tracks the AmeriCorps member service only counts the hours that are approved in Encore. So if they've served hours but they haven't been approved by you, I'm going to see a red flag, and it's going to say that the member's behind, even though technically they aren't. So that's why it's important to stay on top of approving those timesheets in a timely manner. Cognito is the form that we'll use to complete the midterm and final report. So in the past, we've used Excel, which is clunky and a little old school. So we've updated it into an actual form. So you'll get a link to the Cognito midterm report in March, and you'll enter everything within that form. The only thing is you will have to track the volunteers separately and upload that in an Excel spreadsheet. But as far as reporting the capacity building activities, that will all be done through Cognito. You don't need a link, or you don't need a login for that. It will just be a direct link. It'll kind of look like a survey, and you'll fill that out. Our payroll system, that's all done through Workday. It's the same as the state of Iowa. So same pay period as the state of Iowa. There's nothing you need to worry about on that end. And the paychecks are all distributed via direct deposit. Health Teamworks is the training platform that we use to complete the community health worker training. So this year our members will complete the public health training for community health workers. So this is different from the professional skills training that members have done in the past. This one is very specific to Iowa. So the original professional skills training was very much about those foundational kind of interpersonal people skills that come with being a community health worker. The public health training for community health workers is much more about what the actual resources are that are available in Iowa. So it's specific to the state. And, you know, there's a module on food and nutrition. What are all of the different resources that are available when it comes to SNAP, WIC, and how do people get signed up? So it's much more kind of practical. It'll give them the knowledge of what's available so that they can provide that resource navigation effectively. As a site supervisor, there are 3 main tasks that you need to complete. So one is just providing that ongoing support for the member. You should be their point person at the site, where if they have a question or they might be feeling a little confused in their role and not sure if they're doing something correctly or if they're on track, you should be the person that they can go to help make sure that they feel comfortable in their role. We definitely recommend meeting with the member on a regular basis, having one-on-one check-ins to make sure that they are feeling supported, and also, of course, that they are adhering to what's in their member position description. The next is timekeeping. So monitoring those timesheets and approving them in a timely manner. And then lastly, reporting. So making sure that you're meeting those 4 reporting requirements throughout the program year. So 2 data reports and 2 evaluations. I'm sorry, it just got very
Quick
dark.
question,
Yes.
Does the member schedule have to align with the site supervisors, or can they be performing service if, for for example, I was not on campus for a day.
Yes, that is fine. We don't expect that the site supervisor is providing direct supervision every single day, but the site supervisor should be aware of when the member is serving and kind of what they're doing, but you don't need to be there. We expect, or the kind of general rule of thumb is that maybe up to 10% of your time will be spent on supervising. And again, 10 is like very generous. It should probably be less than that, right? Because you have your own role. But you shouldn't be spending more than 10% of your time supervising the AmeriCorps member.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you should be aware of when they're serving so that when you're looking at the timesheets, you can be like, oh, this makes sense. I know that they were there this day. Or, oh, they're saying that they served on a day that we're not even open. So those are the kind of things that you should be thinking about. I'm going to adjust the lighting in my office really quickly. 1 second. Okay. That's better. Sorry about that. Did I see a hand up? Yes.
Yeah, are the requirements, if there are portions of the member's time that could be spent like virtually, or I guess that's the best way to put it. Are those requirements still the same, filling out like the teleservice agreements, or yeah, that's my question. Yes.
So teleservice is allowed, but it should not make up the entirety of the member's service. It should be, they should be spending most of their time at the site. But if the member has some independent projects that can be completed off-site on their own time, that's allowable. But again, you should have a general idea of what they're doing, and they do need to have some sort of accountability system in place. So if they're doing teleservice in the evenings, if they have some data reporting or some research that they're doing that can be done from home, they should send a follow-up email, for example, that evening saying like, I did 2.5 hours of teleservice and this is what I did, so that we have a record of it. I know it seems micromanaging, but that's what the agency requires of us. Or they could have a Google spreadsheet where they are logging their teleservice hours and the activities that they're doing. There are some timekeeping do's and don'ts that you'll become very familiar with. I send them out every Friday when I do my update, but the members can't be serving more than 7 consecutive. They can't serve 7 consecutive days a week or more. So we actually, a new rule moving forward is that we're going to not allow service on Sundays. That should be like the one day of the week where members are not serving unless it's a special circumstance like a community event or something like that. That will just really ensure that we can maintain compliance across the board, that we're not having members serving 7 consecutive days, and they shouldn't be anyway. They should be having at least 1 day off a week. So yeah, if you do, if it makes sense for your member to complete teleservice and that's something you want to do, we can have a separate discussion on that. But in general, it is allowable, but there are some rules around it that we'll talk through. So back to site supervisor expectations. You'll want to connect your member to your organization through orientation and training. So that initial first 2 weeks is probably going to be the biggest lift for you as a site supervisor. You're going to find yourself spending a lot of time with your member and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this for the next 9 months. Don't worry, you won't have to. But just know that the more time you're able to put into that initial orientation and training to make sure that they feel comfortable, the less time you'll have to spend with them for the rest of their service. So just be prepared to do what is needed to make sure they have a really strong understanding of their position description and what their expectations might be on a day-to-day basis. Provide them with needed supplies, space, equipment, software access. Check in with them regularly. we recommend at least every 2 weeks or more frequently to gauge progress on service activities and address any issues. I have a little checklist with some questions I'm going to send to all of the site supervisors so that when you do your check-ins every 2 weeks, you don't necessarily have to follow the checklist, but it will just be a guide to help you. The main thing that you want to check for is, what are they doing? Are they on track? Are they completing their service activities as outlined in their member position description? And are they performing any unallowable or prohibited activities? As long as the main thing is that they're not doing anything that's not allowable, and that they are making progress on their projects. Please ensure that the proposed schedule that the member has allows for them to meet those program-specific requirements, and also accounts for days that the host site is closed. So there are 6 major holidays where AmeriCorps members are not permitted to serve. So that is New Year's Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, Labor Day. Sorry, I forgot Labor Day. If your site is closed for additional holidays, you'll want to take that into account and just make sure that the member's making up hours here or there to stay on track. Make sure that you're contacting me if the member gets hurt or has any attendance issues or performance concerns. We want to definitely address those before they become a bigger problem. A lot of the time, it's just a simple issue of miscommunication. And if we communicate the issue, the member tends to make the adjustments needed. Keep in mind that a lot of our members are coming in with a lot less experience than you. They may still need to learn like what that professional etiquette is in the workplace and what those expectations are. And the more that we can be clear about those expectations, the less likely there is to be an issue. Provide that safety training for all service activities and service site locations, and attend the host site training calls with me. If at any point the member is not meeting expectations, so they're not showing up on time, they're not making progress on their service activities in a timely manner, or just any other kind of performance concerns, you can address those concerns directly with the member. So you don't have to wait to talk to me. If they're not showing up on time, you as a site supervisor, you can call them out and be like, hey, this is not acceptable. This is actually what we expect from you moving forward. That's okay. If after that first chat or warning, the issue persists, then we will have a conversation. And then if it warrants having that clarified in writing, then that should be something that comes from the AmeriCorps program, not from the host site, but we will clarify what the expectations are in writing and have the member sign that. And if at that point the behavior still has not changed, then we will work together to put the member on an performance improvement plan. So again, you are the site supervisor when it comes to meeting the needs of the site and their site-specific service activities. You do have the authority to say like, okay, this is not okay, this is what we expect. But if it goes beyond that, then I need to be involved and we need to get something down in writing. In order to terminate an AmeriCorps member, there has to be a lot of documentation to justify that. So I would say hopefully this has never been an issue. For as long as I've been doing this, we've always been able to resolve things, but just make sure if there really is a serious issue with the member that you're documenting this so that we have sufficient documentation to terminate if that's necessary. Only the AmeriCorps program can terminate a member. So a host site cannot fire a member. The member is a part of the Iowa Community Corps. They're not an employee at your site. And so any dismissal has to come from the site. Okay, so timekeeping. You are expected to review the member's timesheet every week. It is super easy to just look at it and click approve and, not take the time to really look over, but we do really ask that you take at least 2 to 3 minutes to look at the timesheet and make sure you're not seeing anything that doesn't make any sense. So I have a little flow chart of what to look for. But the member cannot serve 7 consecutive days. They cannot serve more than 12 hours in a day. They need to be taking a 30-minute lunch break after 5 hours. And it needs to make sense. Like, you need to know that if they logged 8 hours on a Tuesday, that they were actually there. So just thinking about their timesheet and what makes sense. Their time is divided into 2 separate categories. One is training hours and one is direct service. So their training hours cannot exceed 20% of their total hours. So in a given pay period, they can do more than 20%, but over the span of their entire service commitment, they should not have more than 20% of their time logged under training. They'll do a lot of training in the first month of service, right? When we're looking at timesheets, most of their time is going to be in that training box and then less in the direct service box. And then over time, those categories will switch and the member should be spending most of their time on direct service and less so on training. So something to look out for, looking at those training and service hours to make sure that it makes sense based on what they were doing that week. For what's considered training, that would be program orientation, monthly member meetings, the community health worker training, any other online trainings, and then any host site specific training. So their orientation with you at the site, any safety training that you might have, if you want the member to shadow staff in the beginning, maybe the first couple of weeks so that they can really understand the operations at the site and learn everyone's roles. That would be considered training as well. Also strongly encouraged to do that. And then what is considered direct service is literally anything else. So anything that's not training is direct service. So that would be one-on-one meetings with you, meetings with the staff, their service activities. As long as it's not training, it's considered service as far as timekeeping. And then what the time that the member is reporting should only be the service hours. AmeriCorps isn't tracking PTO or anything like that. The hours that are in their timesheet should just be their service hours. So they're not to report meal breaks, sick days, holidays. We don't have a PTO system where they can log that in the timesheet. What's on their timesheet should just be their service hours. Okay, when looking at the timesheet, these are kind of the things that we want you to be keeping in mind. So looking right off the bat, are the hours true and accurate? Did the member log time on Christmas when the host site is closed or on the weekend? Those are the main things that you should be looking for. So weekend hours, hours where the site's closed, or hours on a holiday. That's going to be a red flag in general, and Sunday hours. Saturday hours are okay as long as it has been agreed upon between the host site and the program, and it should be included in their member position description. So if you intend for your member to serve on Saturdays, we'll just need to make sure that we have clarified that in their position description. Is the member reaching their weekly target? So if they signed on for a reduced half-time slot, are they consistently serving 20 to 21? If they're not, they're going to fall behind. Is the member on track to complete hours by the end of the term? If they're not meeting their weekly target, then likely they're not on track. Is the member everyone still there?
Okay, I'm glad. I thought I was like, oh, my computer stopped working. I was okay.
No,
good.
I think it was
me too.
me. Everyone still there? Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I think I was having connectivity issues, so that was scary. Okay, I will try and fly through the rest of this to prevent that from happening again. So I'm gonna jump back in. I think we're still recording. Yes, we are. Okay. Okay, where did I lose you guys? Did we cover this slide? Are you still there? Oh no.
That's the page we were on when it cut off.
Okay. Okay, so this is just a general flow chart. These are the things that you should be looking for when you're approving timesheets. So generally just making sure that what the member is reporting is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge. Look for weekend hours, holiday hours, hours where the site might be closed. And they may still be true and accurate, but you need to just clarify that with the member. And again, those holiday hours and Sunday hours are not allowed. Any time that the member spends on unallowable activities, so if they're doing something that's unallowable or prohibited, and we find out about it, that time they can't put that on their timesheet, or those hours may be removed from their timesheet at a later time, which would potentially affect their ability to exit successfully. So it's important that they're not logging time for prohibited activities, and then checking to make sure that the members' hours are not exceeding the maximums. So they can't serve more than 12 hours a day, 100 hours in 2 weeks, or 200 hours in a month. If you're looking at a member's timesheet and you see something that is incorrect, you'll just go and click reject. So you can choose to either approve or reject. If there's an issue, hit reject. The member's not in trouble. It doesn't mean anything negative. It just means that you're sending the timesheet back to the member so that they can make the necessary corrections and then resubmit. At that point, they'll resubmit. It will come back to you, and then you can approve. When you're in Encore, you'll see a comment box at the bottom of the timesheet. Please ignore that comment box. Never add any text into that comment box. This is because timesheets are one of the documents that are audited regularly. And so if an auditor were looking at timesheets and they saw something in the comment box that they perceived as being unallowable or prohibited, then it could open the whole program up to being audited. And so we just want to avoid that overall, because site supervisors could put information that's not, maybe the member wasn't actually doing that. You could say like member logged time on Christmas and it needs to be corrected. It could still be misconstrued as an audit finding. So to avoid that, we just ask that you do not use that comment feature. If there's an issue with the timesheet, just reach out to the member directly or reach out to me. We don't need to use the Encore comment box. It's not helpful. We talked a little bit about teleservice. It is allowed outside of the anticipated service schedule for online training and other circumstances, but the teleservice agreement has to be signed. And in that agreement will outline what activities the member is allowed to complete during teleservice and when those hours can be completed. So very important that that's in place prior to them engaging in teleservice. If there's an error on the timesheet and you don't catch it until after you've approved it, just reach out to me and we can get that timesheet unlocked. It will bounce all the way back to the member. They'll have to make changes, resubmit, and then you'll have to reapprove. We've already talked about reporting, so I won't go into it too much, but again, those performance measures need to be reported midway through the program year and at the end of the program year. So you'll be asked to complete the Cognito report to report capacity building activities in March. That report's due April 15th. And then the final report is due September 15th, but generally you'll do that final report upon your member's exit so that the information is fresh in your mind and you know months haven't gone by that you haven't thought about AmeriCorps service. So you'll do it March and then at the end of member service. You'll want to keep track of the members' capacity building activities. Those are outlined in the member position description. So there's clear metrics and goals in there. So you can pull from that to report their capacity building activities. We also need to track the number of volunteers the members recruited, managed, or trained. And then for youth mental health corps members, there is an additional reporting requirement. That's reported by the member. It's not reported by the site. So that's kind of nice for you guys. And I will work with the member and make sure that they understand what they need to be tracking as far as the number of youth and community members that are served through whatever mental health supportive programming they are completing as part of their service activities. So youth mental health corps members do have that separate reporting requirement and they will do that in Encore. So whenever they complete their timesheet, they'll also be asked how many youth have you served and how many community members have you served. They'll want to keep track of that. And then again, those member evaluations twice a year, halfway through the member service and at the end of the member service. I will send you reminders all along the way. I'll make sure you know when things are due so you don't have to stress out about it too much. Just make sure that you're reading those emails from me each Friday and you will be aware of when things are due. The AmeriCorps member has a lot of expectations as well, so they need to, of course, pass that National Service Criminal History check. They need to sign the member service agreement on or before their first day of service. They will need to attend an orientation with me the first day of service. So that will typically be the Friday that they are enrolled. They will meet with me just like this from 9 to 11, and we'll have a very similar virtual orientation. Then I will give the members some homework that they'll have to complete on their own time so that they can go to the site and complete this at the site, or if you would prefer they show up on Monday, they can do that on Friday from home. They'll have to get logged into Encore. They will have to enroll in the community health worker training and get started on that. I ask them to read their member service agreement and their member position description front to back as many times as they need to become very clear on what those rules and expectations are. And then there's also a little assignment that they'll complete to make sure they have a solid understanding of the prohibited activities and their position description. So all of that will be done on their first day. Then we turn them over to you. And you'll do a site-specific orientation. I have a slide on that as well. They are expected to complete their community health worker training within the first month of service. So when they're on site, they may be spending a good chunk of their time on that training. We used to allow them the entire length of their service to complete the training, which they would get really motivated and excited about their on-site service activities, that the training kind of fell to the wayside. But the point is that they're taking that training and applying it to their service activities, and they can't do that if they're not doing the training until month 5 of service. So keep in mind that first month that they will be spending a lot of time on their online training. The member needs to complete the minimum service hour requirement, serve the entire length of their term, and perform their service activities and program requirements satisfactorily in order to exit the program successfully. So they cannot, even if they serve all their service hours within 6 months as opposed to the 9 months that they signed on to, that would not be considered a successful exit, and they would not be able to access their education award because, again, they signed on and they committed to 9 months of service at their site, and they're not meeting the needs of the host site if they're finishing their service early. They should also meet any communicated host site expectations. So if you have expectations as far as dress code, you want the member to dress a certain way, that's fine. Just make sure that they're aware of that. The member needs to be representing AmeriCorps. So they will have a pin that they can wear. They'll have a t-shirt, a lanyard. They should just have something on them at any given time that signifies that they're an AmeriCorps member. I'm obviously not going to police it, but when it's really important is if they're doing anything community facing or you're taking a photo for social media, then we really want them to be representing AmeriCorps in some way. They should be adhering to the service schedule that you have agreed upon, communicating if they're going to be late or absent, having professional behavior and etiquette, and following site-specific policies and protocols. Of course, they can't meet expectations that aren't communicated to them. So in that initial host site orientation, make sure that they're aware of what's considered professional behavior, what the site-specific policies and protocols are, what the dress code is, etc. I also expect the member to have clear communication between the host site and me as the program representative. So they need to reply to calls or emails from me, ideally within 24 hours. They should be checking their email regularly so that we are in communication with each other. They should have AmeriCorps in their email signature. So their email signature should indicate that they're an AmeriCorps member serving at your host site. I expect them to reach out to discuss concerns with me or with the site supervisor so that we can work together to address anything earlier rather than later. And I expect them to stay informed. So that means attending regularly scheduled meetings and reading those weekly emails from me each Friday to make sure they are aware when timesheets are due, when any grant specific communication that needs to be communicated when their evaluations are coming up, etc. I will also provide resources in there that may be useful to the members as well. Okay, so all of the members are on a program-specific professional development plan. So there are certain, intentional training opportunities that we provide to the members that we expect them to complete. So within the first 4 weeks of service, the member must complete the public health training for community health workers, online training, youth mental health corps members also need to complete supplemental modules. So that's the mental health first aid and the youth mental health core modules. There is a monthly lunch and learn that all AmeriCorps members across all programs will be invited to, and our members are expected to attend. That's the third Thursday at 12 p.m. And we'll focus on a different professional development session. So we'll do public speaking, resume and cover letter writing, general professional development that would be applicable to all AmeriCorps members. And then there'll be a follow-up assignment, nothing crazy, but just so that we can confirm their attendance that they'll need to complete. And then they will have access to career coaching and mentorship, and they need to attend at least 3 life coaching sessions throughout their term. And then this is new, but each member is going to be required to join at least one work group that is relevant to their service. So I can help them, or maybe if you have a work group in mind that you think would be a great fit for them, that is, I just think, something that's really valuable for members to be aware of and informed of what's going on in the field that they're interested in, and to build connections and network with others. So that is also something that we'll be taking a time, whether that's 1 hour a month or every other month.
Are those
Separate
things
from-
you're going to be generally working with them on? So
Yeah.
like some of those things, they're not like, okay, site supervisor, make sure they're checking their, like how much, like what's our responsibility as host sites in that? Like I like knowing those are the requirements for them. What is our requirement in helping them meet those things?
Your requirement is to just make sure that they have time to do that. So if it's on their calendar, don't schedule another meeting at the same time, right? Like don't schedule activities that are going to conflict with the program specific activities. So again, they should communicate like, oh, I have this meeting that's going to be this week, so that you're aware of it. And we just ask that you don't pull them away from their or their program specific activities during that time. But other than that, you don't need to be involved in that. If that makes sense. I think the only thing that might be maybe relevant is the work group, because maybe you're a part of one already that you think would be a good fit for them if they're really involved in food insecurity. Maybe there's a work group you know of, or something like that. But that is also something that I can help them with. But yeah, in general, we just want to make sure that they have the time in their schedule to be able to do this, as well as their site-specific activities, if that makes sense. Okay, and then separate from the performance or the professional development plan is their grant compliance plan. So we're really big on compliance this year. And we just want to make sure that the members are aware that they are active participants in helping us meet our grant requirements and adhere to the rules around that. So that's why we're referring to it as a grant compliance plan. So they will feel like they're getting maybe some grant management experience, and they're understanding like what it takes to operate a grant successfully. So they need to submit their timesheets and Encore within 2 days of the end of the pay period. They'll need to submit monthly check-in forms. So each month there'll be a form that they'll complete that just kind of reports on their activities, how they're feeling. I'll read through those forms. If there's anything like, if there's any red flags in there that I'm like, oh, that seems like not maybe what they should be doing, then I'll schedule a follow-up meeting with them just to clarify. And then they'll also have the opportunity to schedule a follow-up meeting with me as well. So these check-in forms are just a way for me to kind of just check in and see that everything looks okay, and then an opportunity for us to meet after that. They need to review and sign the evaluation that's completed by their supervisor. By the end of their term, they need to submit a sustainability plan that summarizes their capacity building activities and lays out a plan to sustain them after their exit from the program. So this is something that they can just start thinking about like towards the end of their service, but this isn't a huge assignment. It's just documentation of this is what the member did for their service, and this is what the site has planned for how these programs and systems that were developed will continue on after the member exits. And then there's also a final survey that they need to complete prior to their exit. So these are in their member position description. These 2 slides are the program specific activities that will be in their member position description. So any questions about that? I see your hand, Zach.
I just have so many questions.
Okay.
So I know they're not allowed to do fundraising activities, right?
Mhm.
But as part of a sustainability plan, is it okay for them to research grants that could, or like, because I mean, part of sustaining activities is the funding necessary to do that. Are they allowed
Right.
to research grants or like research potential opportunities as part of that plan or their role?
I definitely like you using the term opportunities over grants. Let me double check that and get back to you. But like some examples, for example, would be like volunteers. Like maybe they have worked with volunteers or recruited X amount of volunteers that are going to take over a certain project after they're gone. Or maybe they're going to stay on for a second term. Or they've developed training tools that will be used by staff in the future. So those are just some examples. As far as researching grants, I just need
Like
to double check.
for instance,
Yeah.
if like a previous member was researching the Garden in Every Lot program up
Mhm.
in Waterloo as like, is that something that would be feasible for us to do? Their term was cut short, but one of
Yeah.
the aspects that I actually felt like was missing from that was like, oh, what are potential funding sources that could fund a program like this if we were going to be implementing it? Not that they can actually be
Right.
like writing those grants or participating in those activities, but like that could be a line item as someone's researching like appropriate ways to build capacity to say, oh, well, we talked to this program and they said these foundations have grants you can apply to. It might be a gray area. And anyway, so that to me, that seems like a more rounded out sustainability plan, but obviously we don't want to be asking people to do prohibited or unallowable activities.
I mean, it's research, right? So members are allowed to research policy, but that's not considered influence. That's not considered a political activity because they're not writing the policy or I'm just thinking through this out loud. I would say, we'd just be careful about language, but I don't perceive that as being unallowable, but my standards are different from Volunteer Iowa's. So if that is a genuine activity that you want the member to potentially participate in it, we should have a separate conversation about that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just
But
thinking
if they're doing
it's something
research,
included as like a broad, like a case
Yes.
study on a certain type of program, and you list out the type of funding that's available. Like, that's not anyway. Okay, yeah, we can. Anyway, I think that kind of answers my question in terms
Yes.
of that. Like, we don't. And anyway, our organization has certain people that do grants anyway. We would never allow like.
Right.
Yes,
I get you.
Yeah.
I just want to be careful, but I understand what you're saying. And like if a member is doing research and they come across a grant and send it your way because they think it's interesting. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't consider that fundraising, but it shouldn't be like something that is written within their position description. That's like an intentional activity that they're
Yeah.
doing on a day-to-day basis.
It's not like go out and research, 40 different people who give to this type of activity and get their contact info and send it
Yeah,
to
that
me.
would be
seems-
fundraising.
that sounds like fundraising activity, but
Yes.
like if there were anyway, okay. I think that answers my question.
Yeah,
Like
I would say
just
that would be like part of a feasibility assessment right? Like,
yeah,
okay.
more a feasibility assessment rather than like a task like go out and find different ways for your this project to be funded. Like that's a different anyway.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so again, with the sustainability plan, it's not something that I want you to stress out too much, but it's just thinking like these are the ways that I built capacity. These are how the site is going to continue using these tools or systems that were developed into the future, or this is how this program is going to continue on after I leave because of volunteers or new staff. It's yes, not something I want you to stress out about. It was just a way for us to demonstrate the impact of our member service. Okay, host site. Oh no, it's 11. I'll fly through this. Host site orientation. So the member will complete orientation with me Friday morning, and they will have some activities that they'll have to complete. They can do that from home on Friday, or if you want them to come into the office, they can do that and do the activities in the office, or they can come in next week. You guys work together to determine what that on-site orientation schedule is going to look like. But provide them with instructions on when to arrive, where to park, how to access the building, provide them a tour of the building, introduce the member to their workspace, and help with any IT setup that may be required. Make sure that you're introducing the member to the staff and making them feel welcome. We want them to feel, integrated with the staff and like they're a part of the team. Connect the member to the host site mission, vision, programs, and services. Explain any relevant policies and procedures like dress code, standards of conduct, provide safety training and what to do in an emergency, and then provide that additional training that's needed for the member to complete their service activities successfully. So talk through the member position description, get a feel for what they feel confident in and what they might need some clarification on. And then again, if you need them to shadow staff members in different positions to understand operations better, that is a good activity for them to do. At your discretion, what you determine to be appropriate for the host site orientation. Throughout the term, we do kind of monitor sites for the following factors. We look at ability to recruit, member retention, member experience. We want to make sure our members are feeling supported at their sites, regular communication on issues or concerns. And then we do check to make sure, those timesheets are being approved on a timely manner. You're attending meetings and reporting deadlines on time. I will always, send out reminders and nudges to keep everyone on track, but it's not something that I want to be having to do. If it's a pattern of behavior that becomes an issue, then that could affect your ability to be awarded an AmeriCorps member in the future. So those are just the things that we're looking for to monitor sites. And I will try to conduct at least one site visit if time and funds allow. I will definitely see all my sites here in Des Moines, and then try to make some visits out to my sites outside of the metro area at least once. And then please provide feedback at any time. I try my best to make things as smooth for host sites as possible, but there are a lot of moving parts. And if you identified a way that I can make things easier for you, let me know and I'll do my best. Quick checklist. We're going to get our host site agreement signed before the member starts. Approve the member position description and get their service schedule outlined before they start. And then if you haven't already, please post your AmeriCorps position on social media, throughout your office, within community organizations, volunteers, and any other networks. And that's it for me. Any questions? And I know it's past 11, so if you have to hop off, you won't offend me, but I'll stay on until the end if anyone has questions. And I will stop the recording now. Thank you everyone so much for coming on and taking the time. I appreciate you being here.